Have you noticed lately that you have to squint more just to read the newspaper, or that your eyes feel dry or strained after watching TV, using your phone, or reading for too long? If that's happening more often, then this video might offer you a simple but effective solution. Welcome to the Elderly Way, where we share natural, practical, and easy-to-follow options to help older adults stay healthy, live actively, and see more clearly every single day. I'm Dr. Richard Allen, a specialist in senior eye health. After more than 2 decades of working with thousands of patients over the age of 70, I've noticed something that hardly anyone ever talks about. Vision loss doesn't happen in a moment. It wears down little by little, and often without pain, without warning. You don't just wake up one day and suddenly can't see. Instead, you start to notice things like lights seem brighter and more glaring, small print gets harder to read, your eyes burn or feel tired at the end of the day, and you just can't quite see the familiar things around you the way you used to. Here's the issue. The retina, that fragile layer at the back of your eye, doesn't have pain-sensing nerves, so when it starts to decline, you don't feel anything, not until sharp vision is already fading. I've seen this happen again and again. One patient once told me, "I still drive myself to the grocery store every morning, but now when evening comes, I need my kids to take me. My eyes just can't keep up anymore." It wasn't because of eye pain. It was because her eyes hadn't been properly cared for years. But here's the good news. You don't have to wait until your vision gets worse to take action. And you don't need expensive medications or risky surgeries either. If you simply understand what your body is missing and give it the right support, you're already way ahead of most people. In this video, I'll show you 3 small seeds that are incredibly easy to find. How they support your eyes with healthy fats, anti-inflammatory compounds, and retina-protecting nutrients, and how to include them in your diet every day without overhauling your meals or doing anything complicated. If this is your first time here on the Elderly Way, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you won't miss more simple tips to help you stay healthy for the long run. And if you find this helpful, go ahead and like the video and share it with friends your age, because who knows, a single spoonful of seeds a day could be the thing that helps someone keep seeing clearly for years to come. Now let's get into the first seed, and why it's known as the natural bodyguard for your eyes after 70. Seed 1, chia seeds, the quiet helper for aging eyes. If you've ever had an eye exam and the doctor mentioned early signs of macular degeneration or slightly weakened retina, you might already be familiar with some of the symptoms. Eye strain while reading the newspaper, glare from headlights at night being too intense, or a burning dryness in your eyes even when there's no wind or dust around. This is a common condition for people over 70, especially those with diabetes, high blood pressure, or unstable cholesterol levels, because all of those factors affect the tiny blood vessels that supply the eyes. Among all the natural foods that support eye health, chia seeds are one of the easiest to use, most accessible, and when consumed regularly, most noticeably effective. Chia seeds are one of the few plant-based seeds rich in ALA omega-3s, a healthy fatty acid known for reducing inflammation and supporting blood circulation. After the age of 70, low-grade chronic inflammation is almost inevitable, and the retina is one of the most affected areas. One of chia's strengths is that it's flavorless and odorless, making it easy to incorporate into any meal, a big plus for older adults in the U.S. who are often used to simple foods like oatmeal, yogurt, or light morning smoothies. Beyond omega-3s, chia seeds also provide lutein and zeaxanthin, 2 antioxidants proven to help protect the eyes from blue light and UV damage. For older adults who frequently watch TV, use iPads, or read ebooks, these are essential micronutrients, yet often missing from the standard American diet. Another interesting thing about chia seeds. They absorb water and form a natural gel when soaked. Once digested, this gel can support overall hydration, including moisture in the eyes, which is especially important for people taking diuretics, statins, or high blood pressure medications that can dry out the eyes as a side effect. I remember one of my patients, Margaret, age 81, who lives in Arizona, where the climate is very dry. She often felt a burning sensation in her eyes by the afternoon and used artificial tears up to 4 times a day. After adding just 1 teaspoon of chia seeds to her breakfast every day for 3 weeks, she told me, "I don't know if it's magic or not, but I've cut down 2 doses of eye drops a day, and my eyes don't feel gritty at bedtime anymore." We didn't change any of her medications. All we did was add chia seeds to her morning smoothie, along with some frozen blueberries and half a cup of almond milk. Here's the key point. Chia seeds are not medicine. They don't cure disease, but they do help create a better environment for your eyes to function well in the natural aging process, and in the right dose, they can become a valuable part of a health-supportive diet. How to use. Start with 1 teaspoon per day, and if digestion is fine, increase to 1 tablespoon after 1-2 weeks. Always soak in water or mix into moist foods, never eat them dry. Drink plenty of water, especially if you eat a low-fiber diet or are prone to constipation. And if you're taking blood thinners like Coumadin or medication for high blood pressure, talk to your doctor before increasing your chia intake, because ALA can slightly affect blood viscosity in some people. Many people think big changes require big investments, but in truth, one small, consistent habit can help you see more clearly, feel more comfortable, and stay in control of your life. 1 spoonful of chia seeds a day isn't a miracle cure, but if you're looking for a gentle way to support aging eyes, this is a very good place to start. Flax seeds, the silent guardian of your macula. If chia seeds are the best friend of your retina, then flax seeds deserve recognition as the quiet companion protecting the most vital part of your vision, the macula. The macula is a tiny spot right at the center of the retina, but it's responsible for nearly everything that lets us see clearly: facial expressions, fine print, details in images, colors, and light. That's why when your macula begins to decline, you notice right away, reading gets harder, lights feel harsher, and nighttime driving becomes unnecessarily stressful. After age 70, the macula becomes the most vulnerable part of the entire visual system. Blood circulation weakens, the light-sensitive cells begin to suffer from poor nutrient supply, and oxidative stress builds up. These factors slowly rob your vision of sharpness, often without any obvious symptoms. With my older patients, I always emphasize, protecting the macula doesn't need to be complicated or expensive, but it does need to be done correctly and consistently. And ground flaxseed is one of the simplest, most effective options they can start with right away. Like chia, flaxseed contains plant-based omega-3s, specifically ALA. But flaxseed actually has even more ALA than chia. For older adults, that's good news. More ALA means stronger anti-inflammatory support and better circulation, both of which are crucial to keeping the macula intact. But flaxseed doesn't stop there. It's also rich in a unique group of compounds called lignans, a type of antioxidant that few other foods offer in such high amounts. Lignans help neutralize free radicals, reducing damage to eye tissues caused by intense light, UV exposure, and long-term oxidative stress. Another benefit that's often overlooked is the connection between the gut and the eyes, what science calls the gut-eye axis. In older adults, digestive health doesn't just affect nutrient absorption. It's also directly linked to inflammation levels throughout the body, including the eyes. Flaxseed contains soluble fiber that nourishes the gut's good bacteria, supporting lower systemic inflammation, and in turn, helping the eyes stay more stable over time. One example I often share is Harold, 74, who lives in Indiana. He came in complaining of red, light-sensitive, easily fatigued eyes, especially when driving in the late afternoon. He said that at dinner in brightly lit restaurants, he'd often have to look down at his plate because his eyes felt irritated. We started simply. Every morning, he mixed 1 teaspoon of ground flaxseed into Greek yogurt with a few apple slices. After 4 weeks, he came back and said, "I don't have to squint at the menu anymore. My digestion's better too, and I feel clearer-headed throughout the day." At his next eye exam, his ophthalmologist noted a slight reduction in macular irritation, a small change, but a meaningful one. However, one key rule: flaxseed must be ground. Whether you buy whole seeds or pre-ground powder, the nutrients need to be unlocked. Whole flax seeds pass through the gut nearly undigested, offering little to no benefit. You can use a coffee grinder at home or buy pre-ground flaxseed. Just remember to store it in an airtight container in the fridge to prevent the oils from oxidizing. A great starting dose is 1 teaspoon per day. If your digestion handles it well, you can work up to 1 tablespoon. Since many older Americans already eat too little fiber, increasing slowly is important to avoid bloating or discomfort. And as always, if you're taking hormone medications, like HRT or blood thinners, check with your doctor before making flaxseed a regular part of your diet. Flax is gentle, but it can have mild interactions in sensitive individuals. One more advantage of flaxseed: it barely changes the taste of your food. You can sprinkle it on cereal, mix it into pancake batter, stir it into soup, or toss it on a salad. You won't notice a thing, but your eyes just might start seeing the difference in a few weeks. Keeping your macula healthy is how you keep reading, writing, driving, and engaging with the world clearly and confidently. And if you're looking for a simple, hassle-free place to start, a spoonful of flaxseed each morning is a small step well worth trying. Sunflower seeds, the forgotten key for tired eyes. Most people know sunflower seeds as a snack at the park, a baseball game, or a backyard picnic. But for aging eyes, they're actually one of the most powerful supportive foods. They just rarely get the credit they deserve. What sets sunflower seeds apart is their exceptionally high content of natural vitamin E. This vitamin acts as an antioxidant, not in the marketing slogan sense, but in the real scientific one. It helps protect eye tissue from being corroded by oxidative stress, especially when your eyes are frequently exposed to bright light, UV rays, or blue light from screens. Imagine eye tissue like a thin metal surface. Leave it exposed to harsh weather long enough and it starts to rust. Oxidative stress works the same way. It silently wears down the sensitive cells in your retina, gradually reducing your central vision over time. Vitamin E in sunflower seeds helps slow that process. More importantly, you're getting it from a whole food, no need for synthetic supplements that often cause indigestion or bloating, a common issue for older adults who take multiple medications. Beyond vitamin E, sunflower seeds also contain healthy fats, the kind that help maintain moisture and suppleness in the eyes, something many people over 70 begin to lack, especially in dry climates like Colorado, Nevada, or Texas. Many of my patients describe the sensation as gritty, burning like sand in the eyes by late afternoon. It's not from a foreign object. It's because their tear film is breaking down, making the surface of the eye dry, sensitive, and uncomfortable. Sunflower seeds help with this by delivering three synergistic components. Vitamin E protects eye tissue. Monounsaturated fats help maintain the oily layer in tears. Zinc supports natural tear production. The result: less dryness, less fatigue in the eyes by late afternoon or after screen use. Sunflower seeds also contain selenium and magnesium, two minerals that help the tiny blood vessels around the retina dilate and circulate more efficiently. This is especially helpful for people with high blood pressure, atherosclerosis, or capillary damage from diabetes. Take Mrs. Joyce, 79, from Ohio. She still drives herself to church choir rehearsals every Wednesday and Sunday. But recently she complained that her vision often blurred at night, with a dull ache behind her eyes, especially after reading or using her tablet to view song lyrics. I didn't change any of her medications. We simply added 1 tablespoon of unsalted, shelled sunflower seeds to her afternoon snack, sprinkled over Greek yogurt with a few frozen berries. After 3 weeks, she said the eye strain and behind-the-eye pressure had almost completely gone away. She felt more comfortable driving at dusk, no longer needing to rest her eyes halfway like before. Changes like that aren't magical, and they don't happen overnight. But with consistency, they add up to a sense of ease and control that every older adult deserves. If you want to use sunflower seeds the right way, here are a few tips. Choose unsalted, shelled seeds, especially if you're managing blood pressure. If chewing is difficult due to weak teeth or dentures, buy ground seeds or add them to smoothies, baked goods, or sprinkle on soft cereal. If you've had issues with your gallbladder or slow digestion, start with a small amount, 1 teaspoon, then increase if your body handles it well. And above all, don't think you have to overhaul your whole diet to see results. 1 small spoonful a day isn't a burden, it's a form of care. Sunflower seeds are an affordable, easy-to-implement option that truly impacts eyes growing more sensitive with age. We can't reverse time, but we can support our eyes in smarter, more natural ways, starting with something as simple as this. 1 small habit, 1 big change for your vision. So, we've gone through 3 simple types of seeds: chia, flax, and sunflower, each providing its own distinct yet essential benefit for aging eyes. But there's something even more important. You don't need to do everything at once. You don't need to eat all 3 types every day. No strict nutrition plan is necessary. And you certainly don't have to do everything 100% perfectly. All you need is 1 small action, performed consistently every week, to gradually strengthen your vision from within. Because after age 70, your eyes aren't just weakening, they're actively asking for care. Perhaps you've already felt it yourself. Eye strain when reading the morning mail, dry eyes after lunch, slight blurriness when driving at dusk, or a sensation that lights are too bright, even though the lamps are normal. And sometimes you wonder, is my vision only going to get worse from here? I want you to know the answer is no. You don't have to rely forever on eye drops or prescriptions. You can start turning things around with very simple actions, such as a spoonful of flaxseed at breakfast, a handful of sunflower seeds in your salad, a gentle chia seed drink each morning. I remember Albert, 81 years old, from North Carolina. He suffered from dry eyes and had trouble focusing when reading his Bible in the evening. We didn't do anything complicated. We just added ground flaxseed to his yogurt 3 times a week and unsalted sunflower seeds to his lunch. After 4 weeks, he told me, "Not only can I read more easily, but I feel like I've regained something I thought was lost forever." And to me, that's what matters most, because this isn't just about nutrition. It's about reclaiming a sense of control over your life, something that age can sometimes make you feel you're gradually losing. Remember, your eyes are still working every day, and they will respond to your care. It doesn't have to be perfect, just conscious and consistent. So what can you do today? Take a look at your eating habits this week. Find just one meal to add one of these 3 types of seeds. It could be breakfast. It could be a snack. You choose. You do it your way. Because over time, these quiet, small actions will make a clear difference. And finally, here's a message that I believe every senior needs to hear. If you're still watching this far, I truly thank you. It tells me you care about your health, your independence, and keeping your vision healthy for the long run, not just for yourself, but for your family as well. Let's be honest with each other. When your vision starts weakening, everything changes. It's harder to stay connected. It's harder to feel confident. And sometimes, it's harder to enjoy the little things that used to bring joy. But here's one thing I want you to take away from this video. You are not powerless, just by making small choices. A spoonful of seeds a day, paying attention to how your eyes feel, and staying consistent with what's good for you. You can achieve more than you might think. I don't promise miracles, but I've seen many patients preserve their vision longer, feel more comfortable, and regain their confidence just through these 3 simple seeds. Wherever you are in your journey, whether you're just starting to notice changes or have had eye problems for years, I want you to remember, it's never too late to take care of your vision. It's never too late to care for yourself. And it's never too late to feel hopeful again. If this video has given you a new idea, a bit of encouragement, or simply a clearer direction, please hit the subscribe button for The Elderly Way. Click like if you feel more motivated. Share with your family and friends, anyone who may need it. And if you're already using one of these 3 seeds or plan to start soon, please leave a comment. I read them all, and your story might just inspire someone else. I'm Dr. Richard Allen, an expert in vision health for seniors. And before we wrap up, I just want to remind you of this. Health isn't about perfection. Health is about being present. Take care of your eyes. Take care of yourself.